Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Leadership for the Now. My name is Florin Lungu, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. And today, I'm going to be joined by a wonderful guest, Lars-Christian Brask. Now, we had a challenge with his schedule, so we had to record this, but we wanted to keep the commitment to you. So I jumped on the call with Lars Christian, and we went through the questions that I wanted to ask him. So I hope you're going to find value in our discussion, and I look forward to see you back at the end of the interview. Okay, so here is Lars Christian.
Well, hello. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of the Leadership for the Now. My name is Florin Lungu, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. And today I'm joined by one fantastic guest, Lars-Christian Brask. Lars-Christian is not only a fantastic business person, but he's also an investor, he's an author, and he sits on boards on different companies. And he's going to share with us some of his knowledge and what he sees that is the leadership for the now and the future of leadership. Welcome, Lars-Christian.
Thank you very much, Florin.
So tell us a little bit about yourself before we start, for someone that doesn't know you.
Well, I think you've said a lot, but let me try. My background is finance. I've headed up many banks, American, Swiss, Swedish, Danish. I lived abroad. I now live in Denmark, but I lived 15 years in London primarily, but also in New York and San Francisco. I was an investment banker and private banker. Then I moved to Denmark 15 years ago to head up a Swedish bank and then a Swiss bank. And when I sold the Swiss bank in Denmark to a Swedish bank, I'd sort of done my duty in the banking world. So I moved on to be a board of director and primarily a chairman of companies, using all the skills I've learned in banking, where you have to X-ray a company or a business proposition in a very fast period of time, understanding what the triggers are, what you can do to improve the business, maybe sometimes what you can do to sell the business, or if you're acquiring another business, find out exactly what the key points are. So I took some of that experience and used it on boards, and in that way helping owners to achieve via the board and the executive management the goals that they have, and sort of by coaching, guiding and motivating the executive management committee. So that's what I do today, and a bit of politics, and I educate people in sitting on boards, and I coach business leaders in performing with their teams.
Wow. So you definitely have a view on business and the future of business, and also with your involvement in politics, that you kind of have a view that we don't have. So share with us a little bit of what you see. What would be some of the challenges that leaders face in today's world?
Well, from a big macro perspective, we have to work on being free of dependence of China and Russia. I think Russia happened a little bit before we expected it, but it's an agenda that we have to look very seriously into as business owners, as business leaders. Supply chain, we've seen in the health crisis how that has impacted our businesses. So that is something we have to continue to look into. And also when you have these regimes that can be relatively volatile and certainly not have the same agenda as us in the Western world, then we have to make ourselves independent of those. So that's a big theme that we have to continue to focus on. But as a leader, the skills you have to look for daily is the right skills to perform within your organization, and to keep motivating those talented people to, first of all, come to you, and then to stay with you. That's something that has always been, that's something that will continue to be. So the hunt for talent is sort of one thing that should be on everybody's mind. if it isn't already. And I doubt any leader hasn't had that on his or her agenda already. Yeah. But it's just have to be said, because it is a key issue, or continued key issue to focus on.
Right. So on the macro, we have to be aware of what's going on in the world, right? So you mentioned being, free of dependency of these, countries that maybe are not so stable, and we cannot really predict what's going on, and also supply chain, and on more on the micro or more related to our business, depending on the type of business we're in and the industry we're in. Then talent is probably one of the widespread kind of challenges, right? Depending on independent of the industry, but maybe we also have something which is more, let's say, specific to some industries. So, for example, someone has an eye on all these factors, micro factors, and they have an eye on the talent, so then what would be some opportunities for those businesses in today's world? Because we know some challenges also bring some opportunities. So what do you see?
I forgot to mention one thing, because I also think in the future we have to get used to do more with less talent, with less resources, or because it costs more to produce, at least in the short term, that will mean we have less margin. So more with less is also one of the headlines as I see it. But going back to your question, I think it's always a matter of, when you are a leader, motivate within your specific area. Be focused, be very clear on what your raison d'etre, the why, the values that you have in the company, in the organization. Never forget that, and it comes top down. But we also have to be used to that we can't just be top down. A lot of it will happen from within the organization, and the millennials that are now becoming a bigger and bigger part of our workforce, they want to be managed in a different way than we managed people 5 years ago, and certainly a lot different than we managed people 10 years ago. So that's also a trend you have to be focused on. But the key thing is, it's all about people. It's about understanding people, understanding people's goals, your workforce, your owners, sometimes the clients, people's skills and motivations. If you don't understand that, if you don't try to cultivate that and getting the best out of people and their skills and their motivation, then you won't succeed as an organization. You won't be able to deliver to the goals of the owners, or to, and that's very important, to what the clients need. So it's also a matter of understanding the needs of people, and in this case, both employees and owners, but certainly, and so there's three, the clients. If you don't understand the clients, if you don't try to be where they see the needs, then you have a short term as an organization, short-term life as an organization.
Wow, that's so important. And I love that you bring people and you talk about people, because I think this is one of the most difficult things for leaders, because that's also my field of expertise, and of course I like to speak about that. But I think the hard part, the financials, I can have someone like you, or I can hire someone, an expert, and do that and help me. But as a leader, there are some things that I cannot outsource, right? When it comes to understanding and motivating my team, and it's so important that you mentioned that. So when you see leaders that do this very, very well, what opportunities do you see that those people have compared to those that maybe do not really understand what we're talking about here?
Yeah, if you don't understand people, if you don't understand the raison d'etre of your organization, if you don't understand the client's needs, then you have an issue. And also you say the combination of these things, in old school, you would learn it was a plus between these. So if you had a little bit less of one of them, it didn't matter. Then you just became less. But I think it's actually a multiple signs in between. So if one of them is zero, then the total sum of the business and of your prospect will be zero. And I think with the change we see today and the speed where everything happens, you have to be very, very certain about all these issues, and you have to be certain that you got your employees to buy into what it is you're doing. And it goes back to what I said before. It's people, and understanding exactly their needs, their goals, their skills, their motivations, and then you just gotta execute. And if you don't do that, talking to your question, you're not gonna stay in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you have seen for example, in the last 2 years, because this was something new, many businesses were not too open to remote work, for example, right? Now that that's an incentive that we could offer to our employees, but it becomes with one of the challenges, which is trust, right? Trusting our people that if they work remotely, they do what they need to do and they deliver. So what have you seen for example, in the talent pool and in the workforce after the pandemic? Like, you have a view here in Denmark, so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's very different from organization to organization. If you are a carpenter, it's difficult to work from home if you have clients that want you to come and build something for them. But you will see more and more freedom at work, and you will see more and more freedom as long as you are responsible and as long as you deliver to the expectations. The thing you have to be careful of is that we don't get all as remote workers, because then it's very difficult to retain the culture of the organization. And then you will just become sort of hired guns for a short or long period. That might also be a part of how the work environment evolves. That we take jobs for shorter or longer periods and execute within our skill sets. And we can do that remotely, we can do that at work. But I think, as a leader personally, that it's important that we come together physically, we like each other or get to know each other as colleagues, we exchange information, because nobody in an organization is sort of on the side when it comes to the goals and the client's needs. So it's important, and I think it's also important for the workforce that they have this feeling of belonging. They have this feeling of wanting to be part of something that they trust and believe in, and they want to be the human being is a social creature. So you want to have someone around you that is in the same boat as you. So you will see a lot of working from home. You still see that, even though we don't have the health crisis any longer. Some say it might come back, hopefully not. But you still see people working from home, and with good skills in management and in leadership, that can certainly work, absolutely, and it can actually be a motivation for some employees. But the key thing is, in my view, that you also have to have a physical place where you meet on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I share the same view. Like, it's very difficult to maintain culture by just having remote working teams, and yeah, the human interaction, the physical touch, being in the same room, going out for lunch. That's nothing that can replace that online.
No, I agree. And also meeting clients, you have to do it physically. I think to be successful, to understanding the body language in a different way than you can do on a screen, and you get to talk in a different way. when you're together physically. And at the end of the day, if we don't have clients, if we don't have employees, we have nothing.
Yeah, and you're so right. And I have found that with clients, it works a lot. At least if the first meeting or one meeting is in person, then you could probably follow up online as well. But it has to be that connection. So when you, because I know you lead educations for board members. So when you speak to those people, to those audiences, what do you tell them that they should be aware about the future? So what do you see in the future that maybe we don't see yet, and we would have to see? So share a bit about that.
Well, when it comes to boards, they get more actively involved in the daily business. They get closer to the executive management committee. There's more coaching, there's more guidance, there's more involvement. And you also see the rate of change and the speed of change. It's phenomenal. So you have to be agile. You have to be very aware of what's your strengths, what is it you are actually doing, and what is important and what is less important, and then put the focus on your key business areas. And then, there's nothing new here. You want to get and retain the most appropriate people for the job, for the tasks ahead, and you want to make sure that they are motivated. And that goes for the board, down to getting the best executive management committee, and for the executive management committee further down in the organization. It is ultimately any leader's job to make sure you get the most appropriate, the best, the most relevant people for the tasks ahead, and then making sure that you get the best version of each individual of themselves. Get them motivated, get them excited about the goals, about the values, and then go and execute. That is in effect what we as leaders have to focus on now, but also in the future. And it happens faster, and it's sometimes exponential, and you just have to get used to it. And and that's why it's so important to understand your organization and the talent you have within the organization and the key things that your organization performs.
Wow, that's so good. So, still focusing on people, getting comfortable with the fast-pacing change and evolution of things, and being maybe more hands-on than you used to be, like maybe more involved. All right, thank you so much. This is so valuable. So, what are you looking forward to? This autumn or maybe next year, like personally, what are some things that you're working on or towards?
For some of the companies, it's definitely fixing the supply chain so that we are not dependent on ports closing down or factories having half their workforce off, and especially making sure that we have a better control of our suppliers. But it's a big issue because raw material prices have been on the rise, probably still on the rise. So the cost element is one thing that short term and say sort of the next 3 to 6 months we have to focus very carefully about. And then we have to be careful about not promising to be able to deliver something that we can't deliver. So it's a management of what is our production capacity. And that's regardless of you being a consultant or you being producing hardware company. So either a service company or a production company. That is going to be a key issue. Can you deliver? Have you got the talents? Have you got the supplies that is needed for that, and then manage the client's expectations. And then we have to manage our own business because the cost, both for employees and for products have gone up and will continue to go up for the short term. And then we have all this uncertainty in the world. We've had the health crisis, we have war in Europe, and other things. And that's also what I mean, that there's so many changes, there's so many unknowns you gotta be, or relatively unknowns you gotta be aware of and put into your sort of business mind and business model, and then navigate in those relatively complicated issues. But the key thing is being able to deliver to the client's legitimate expectations. That is the focus, short term, near term, and then all the things you have to manage underneath that, including a new mentality in your workforce or prices that go completely crazy.
So balancing that input in our business or supply and the output that we promise to clients. And I think you make such an important point there, because we were looking to change our car, and when we went into a dealer and they told us 18 months, we said, what, 18 months? And I said, yep, semiconductor supply or whatever other challenges they had. So it's very important for us to be able to manage that. So thank you for pointing
out. I can tell you one example, Florin, and to the audience. We in the building and construction industry, I have a company. On the Friday, the price was one thing. At the end of Friday, close for delivery Monday, steel prices were up, or some steel components were up 60% from one business day to the other. Go manage that. Yeah. Go manage the client's expectation. Go manage the owner's expectations, because the shrinkage of margin, it's a complicated world. Mm-hmm. And it's not, there's nothing new in that. But my point is, it's just happening very fast and sometimes relatively unexpected. And that's where you're going to show the strengths in getting the organization with you and getting the clients to understand and the owners to understand. So that whole group of people, that life around your business, to understand and manage their expectations and still retain them as employees, owners, of course, and clients.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you so much for sharing this. So just let's close with a couple of more personal questions. So one question that I like asking our guests is, what was the best leadership advice you ever got, and how did that help you?
It was approximately the same from two different leaders, and sort of within 10 years of each other. And it was basically keep focusing on what you're good at, or keep developing, being the best of yourself. So the things you can improve where you're very good, continue to do that. The things you're not very good at, realize that and don't try to make it into a strength. And then told in different ways by the two different people, continue building on your strong network, continue building on the people you know and the access you have to people. And one of them said people that make the tough decisions, and the tough decision here was, should we be a supplier or shouldn't we be a supplier? The networking thing, and to focus on your skills and cultivating those skills. And that's the same thing I do as leader today, finding the appropriate people and making sure they become the best version of themselves, so that they are happy at work and productive at work and have a good life.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's so good. And you said that multiple times during this interview. Focus on your strengths, know what you're good at, stay in your lane, and be very good at that, and not try to do all things to all people. Maybe outsource some of the skills that you need, outsource some of the services, but focus on your strengths. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. So, lastly, the last question now: what does leadership for the now means to you? What does leadership today means? If you just describe it in one sentence, one words, very shortly, what would that be?
Managing people, leading people to perform within what they think. I think there's a lot of commas in here, so it will be a long sentence, but it's basically to get the best out of the talent you have, keep them happy, and keep them motivated. That's the leader's role, and then to get everybody to move in the direction that suits the owners and live up to clients' expectations. It was a long sentence, but it's people, people, people.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's so important because this comes from someone's, that has financial experience. So you worked in the finances bank industry for long, and we would maybe expect that you say something else, know your P&L or know your numbers, but you're actually talking about people because you understand actually the essence of business, and that's so important.
Yeah, but business is also bottom line. Business is also sustainability. Business is also being a good citizen as an organization. But it is given that you gotta perform financially, because if you don't perform financially, then you don't survive. So you can save the world having a fantastic product, but if you don't have the economy to survive, then you do something good for a short period of time. So the financials are also part of it, but the financials happen when you have the right goals, when you have the right values, when you have the right people. Then the financial happens not automatically, but with good leadership, with good management, with good execution, you also get the financial, and you must have the financials, but it cannot stand on its own. And ultimately, everything comes down to people.
Yeah. And sometimes you get into choosing between finances and people, and it's so important that you mention people, 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 and the finances
Yes.
to maintain the business. All right. Thank you so much, Lars-Christian, for joining us today. It was wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. All right. Thank you so much for watching today, and we look forward to see you with another guest next Wednesday. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, wasn't that good? He's not only a wonderful business person, a politician, but it's also a wonderful individual, a wonderful human being. We had a pleasure to visit his, hometown Roskilde in Denmark, and he, took us on a guide on in the city and shows us around. So really top notch. So if you have any questions, just drop us in the comments. We're gonna get back to those. But I just wanted to bring Lars-Christian to you because I know the wisdom he could share. So thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to see you again next week with another guest, same time, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Thank you for tuning in. Take care. Bye-bye.